Awesome. So congratulations on having your screening at the TCL Chinese Theater. I guess first of all, let's talk about what does it mean for you guys having your film shown at such an iconic place like the Chinese Theater.
Oh, it was it was a wonderful experience, to say the least. When we submitted the film to Dances with Films, I felt it was kind of a long shot. And so when they emailed back and said, "Hey, would you be available to fly in and attend the screening on the 27th?" I said, "Yes." and I said, "Okay, you're in." and, and so, yeah, and the rest is history.
Pretty much.
Yeah, what is it like for you guys to see this film, especially coming out of pandemic with an audience, seeing their reaction, seeing what's working, what's not?
Oh, it was great to hear everything, to see everything. We're very fortunate. The post-production went really, really well. Certainly from a audio perspective, certainly from a visual perspective, and to be able to see it just up there like that. I mean, the three of us have seen it so many times on obviously much smaller screens and tweaking everything and doing all that kind of stuff. But to be able to see that was really great. And what David was saying about, I think kind of like the enthusiasm of the festival, we've said it several times, just that the level of care that they have there at Dances with Films, they care. They saw a couple things when they were kind of screening just for quality to make sure everything was okay with the files we sent over. They noticed a couple things that were a little bit off. And it's intentional stuff. It's stuff that we did with the edit, with the timing or whatever. But, they didn't know that. So they flagged that immediately, just said, "Hey, just so you know, there's this thing and this thing and this thing. We just want to make sure that you know what's going on if you need to fix something." So, small things like that. But throughout the entire kind of, gearing up process, you could just tell that they care, and that's pretty cool. And then obviously, of course, the iconic Chinese theater and the Walk of Fame and all that stuff. I mean, that all adds to it 100%.
Definitely. Acting wise, this is such a unique film with such a unique pace. What was it like getting into your characters and coming up with the best way to portray these people?
So we actually had a very consistent rehearsal process. Part of the whole COVID thing, obviously not being able to meet as much, but also bringing Tilke in not only as a producer but also acted as our acting coach. And she and I have a long-standing. David and I do too. We've said this. We've said this a bunch of times. I've known both of them. Been very fortunate to know both of them for many, 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 many years. And Tilke and I worked together. The way that we met, she had lived out on the West Coast for quite a while. She came home to deal with some personal things, and then she started auditioning for the Buffalo theater scene. And we ended up doing three shows back to back to back. So you either kill somebody at that point or you're bonded, for life as friends. And so she and Dave had worked together on Dave's previous film, Geometry's Desire, which I was fortunate enough to edit as well. So we all have this connection. She had worked on that with Dave, so he had brought her into this for intimacy coordination. And then it just kind of evolved into all that. I said, I'd love to have her work with us, from an acting perspective, and her take on things and Dave's take on things, very different and very unique. So she got to work with us as the performers, and Dave was able to do, Dave is, I've said this before too, Dave is hands down the best pre-production person I've ever, dealt with. He's a nut, and he's a maniac with it. And it's amazing. He really is. His detail and his attention, it's a gift for sure. And so Tilke was able to work with us to really be able to just kind of get into all that stuff. We had Zoom rehearsals with everybody, breaking things up based on their scenes or their situations. So that really helps. And if you know anything about theater rehearsal, I mean, that's one of the benefits of it. You're doing it and you're doing it and you're exploring it and you're exploring it. And that's not something you necessarily always get, in film. And we were able to, even with people that might have only been there for a day or two, we were still able to give that attention. and so that was helpful. Creating the characters, it's crazy. Our lady Mary Coleman, who was the homeless lady in the film, she actually got a very specific write-up in one of our really nice, gracious reviews, and the reviewer said she was watching her in her very, in a briefer sequence, and she said, wow, she's really good. The level of Mary's dedication to this character and the complex backstory she developed for this character that's in the movie for only a few minutes, it's incredible. And we got that from a lot of people. For me personally, as Ren, a lot of this is derived from a lot of things that I've dealt with myself over the last few years of my life. Mental health struggles, personal issues, just kind of the crazy world we live in. And that was just the right time to be able to get some of that out with Dave and Tilke and everybody else. But I was able, for this film in particular, I was able to tap into a lot of myself. And, I think that helped me personally quite a bit. Tilke can probably speak to that process as well, for sure.
Yeah, let me just circle around and say I acted as intimacy coordinator and co-director, ended up doing some producing and many other things that we've said many times, like, it's indie, so we're all doing tons of stuff. Dave is also director and executive producer, and also, all the things that we're doing.
And 100 other things. Yeah, everybody. I mean, that's in the film. All of the above.
Yeah. And then Aaron is the star, Ren, and he also wrote it and is a producer. Just so whoever is listening or watching knows what our rules are. I think that what I really thought was great about having Dave and I co-directing is he was able to do all this like pre-production producing stuff while I was able to work with the actors. We had a very short, limited amount of time to film, and so we created these characters with the actors. We had, I think maybe it was 5 weeks we worked with the actors, and like Aaron said, even Mary, who would have been considered a day player, she came for maybe a half of a day and had a short scene. Like, because of the rehearsal process, we were able to like create a character with her, develop a character, work with her, refine a character. And I think we were able to do that with all the actors, which is unusual in this, probably unusual in the indie film scene just because of time and all that kind of stuff. So I think in that way, when I watch the film, I see the benefit of it. And it also allowed Aaron, who was wearing 1,000 hats, to have time built in where this is the time that I work on my character, because I've said this before in other interviews, when you are a lead actor in something that you're also wearing other hats behind the camera, a lot of times like a lot of times like the acting and the performance is like sort of put last because you're just juggling so much. So it built that in for him. And I think that was really useful. And we see that, and we've had, and the reviewers have seen that too. Like, he was able to like have the time built in to, we were able to work on the stuff so that it was being worked on. And then when we got to set with him and everybody else, everybody knew what they were doing.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so David, having so many people wear so many different hats, does that make it more difficult for a director, or how does that go?
No, it makes it easier on a director. I mean, it's as long as the people who are wearing all these multiple hats, as long as you trust them, and I trust. Hold on. I trust Tilke. I trust Aaron. I trusted all the people that I kind of surrounded myself with, and that's one of the reasons that they were there, because I knew them. I had worked with them before. I knew their strengths. I knew their talents, and so. There were very few new faces. There were 2 new faces. The that I should probably call out. One was Nick Green, who he actually came on as kind of assistant camera production assistant, and he quickly graduated to, you know, he was a full camera operator. He was many things. He put on, as we all did, many different hats, and wonderfully talented young man. And the other was Steven Rosenthal, and he came on as our sound guy. But again, he also graduated. He operated a camera for a few things. He did some sound work, I believe, and sound design, and some other things. So
he call it, you know, in the editing process as I was cutting the film, he did all the color correction. So
color correction, that's what I was
the
thinking.
crazy
Right.
look and all that nuttiness. That's all Steve. Just
so I mean, we assembled a team of just wonderfully talented individuals, and everybody brought their A+ game, and everyone was fully vested, and it was fantastic. It was just a great crew, great cast, great everything, and we shot it all in 10 days, and surprisingly, what sort of surprises me is that I'm shooting this stuff over here, I'm shooting these scenes over here, Tilke's shooting these scenes over here. I've got my crew, she has her crew, and yet I think that the average person looking at this film would not be able to say, oh, Tilke shot that or David shot that. It looks it's very cohesive. Yeah. So I think that also speaks to the multiple talents all kind of coming together.
Yeah, definitely.
Making a movie that works.
Yeah. Having watched this movie now with an audience, what are the scenes that you guys most enjoyed seeing with an audience?
I think my favorite scene is when Veronica's taking off her clothes, Ren's watching her, and they're both screaming at each other. She's screaming and he's screaming and she's screaming, and it's getting louder and louder and more frenzied. And that's so visceral and so powerful. And I think that's my favorite scene in the whole film. Absolutely.
I can't. That scene, I shot that scene, and it was terrifying to watch, terrifying to direct, and it's also still terrifying to watch after the film is done. It's like, oh my God, because like Dave said, it's so visceral. It's just like you can feel the character, like particularly Ren. You know, he's the protagonist, and Pamela's one of the antagonists, you could say, and just the pain that is happening is like, you know, the visual pain, but then the auditory pain of like the gutturalness of it.
Yeah, I have trouble watching that sequence. I seriously, every time I've had to watch it, I have trouble with it. That was definitely one of the most intense things I've ever done as an actor. Later that day, Tilke actually became my fainting couch.
Sorry for laughing.
True. I was doing the voiceover that you hear towards the end of the film, and after that, I lost it. I just broke down, and Tilke just hugged me like I was a child. You know, and that's part of the process. You know, you have to leave it all out there. You have to give it your all. And I'm not someone who goes crazy with subscribing to like method acting or anything like that particularly, but just, I mean, again, this is a very, very personal story for me in a lot of ways. And again, I think that shows. That's a difficult scene, and I think we specifically made all of the sexy time or love sequences or whatever. We did a lot of that in a way to make it very unflattering. And Veronica and Jillian are both beautiful, beautiful women. They're extremely talented, first and foremost, obviously. But like that sequence isn't sexy. It could be in a different movie. It's not here. And I think we did the right thing with that kind of concept. For me personally, the Benji Marks stuff, the infomercial things that ultimately play a bigger part than someone might think, that stuff played really well, live with other people who don't think that this is a romantic comedy. But fortunately, that stuff has actually gotten really great recognition. People have really enjoyed it from the trailer, or people who have been able to screen the film. That's really played well with them, apart from just our little driller family, so to speak. So that's very rewarding for me as a writer. As an actor, the sequence with myself and Larson in the kitchen, the private detective who kind of gets on his trail. For me, I think that's the best acted sequence in the film. For me, that personally, it was just very awkward the way it's shot. But Michael Argentieri, he just played it pitch perfect, and I think it showcases really well. And then for me, from a visual standpoint, I love the sequence with the homeless lady. I think the special effects came off really, really well, all things considered, with the budget we had and the professionals that we had, and Soda FX and everything doing those amazing effects. But everything that we did from an effects standpoint was basically, we got one shot. So if it's going to work, it's going to work. And for me, that one is just so visceral. And the colors and just, everything came together, and the drill and Mary being so excellent. So yeah, that's how those are the things that stick out to me personally, as a writer, as an actor, and in general.
Awesome. So finally, would you guys like to share your social media where people can follow you, and the film's social media?
Sure. The film does have its own website, rustbeltdriller.com. It's a little bit under construction still, but it is there. We also have our Facebook page as our primary social outlet, facebook.com, obviously, /rustbeltdrillerfilm. You can just Google it. If you Google Rust Belt Driller, you can see a bunch of our reviews that are up now. You'll see the YouTube channel. You'll see the Facebook page. You'll see the website. There is a little bit about it on my personal website as well, aaronkrygier.com. And we do have a Twitter out there too, RB Driller Film on Twitter. And that hasn't been super active, but it is there and available. So that's the stuff.
Awesome. And how about your personal social media for people who want to follow your progress?
My personal Facebook page is Aaron Krygier Actor. I also have Aaron Krygier Actor on Instagram.
I've got the Tilke Hill on Facebook, and then it's Tilke Hill on Instagram. Those are the two that I use most.
Is it the or the?
No, it's the Tilke Hill. The Tilke Hill.
Absolutely. You can follow my adventures on Red Screen Film Studio, and that's on Facebook.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for your time, and congratulations once again.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.